Hello everyone, and welcome to my latest review, in which I'll be discussing one of my favourite movies of all time, that being District 9. So let's not waste any time and get into my thoughts on this movie. The plot is set in South Africa during the early 1980s, as we see an alien spaceship hover over Johannesburg. When the government discover aliens that are sick on board this ship, they decide to confine them in a camp known as District 9. One element that I loved about the story is how there's lots of real-world themes thrown into the mix. This includes immigration, poverty, prejudice, and injustice, in this case, against aliens. And the great thing is that they all feel relevant to the story, rather than being thrown in to satisfy a checklist. MNU, which stands for Multinational United, are the evil corporate villains in the story. The practices that the company deploy against the aliens, or prawns as they're referred to, in their efforts to relocate them to a new camp, in what turns out to be a smaller township than the one they're currently living in, is a commentary of how the governments often attempt to use cheap tactics as a way to ship immigrants out of their country. And it's this kind of political commentary that makes the movie stand out from the endless slew of sci-fi movies that we get nowadays. The turning point in the plot comes when the protagonist, Vickers van der Meer, becomes infected by an alien fluid after he investigates the alien Christopher Johnson's home. The idea in the script to gradually turn Vickers into an alien as the story progresses is clever, as it forces the character to become empathetic towards aliens that he was once tasked with hunting down. Vickers being on the run from the government, and in turn his relationship with Christopher Johnson, allows him to put himself in the shoes of the aliens and the struggles that they're going through against the South African people. His eventual friendship with CJ is the emotional core of the movie. The movie is also the alien version of The Fugitive, but I mean that as a big compliment. Vickers is played brilliantly by Sholto Copley. This was funnily enough his first feature-length film, but that does not come across in his performance. He initially portrays his character as a cheeky chappy, such as the scenes in which he's having banter with his colleagues. Especially during the first act, Vickers is very much a vessel of informing the audience of how people can become a part of the system of corrupt government policies and regulations without even realising it. Copley also brings a level of emotion to the role, particularly post the character's alien infection, where he begins to realise the suffering that the aliens have gone through throughout their time of living in South Africa. The villain of the movie, Cobus, is played by South African acting star David James. The character is a physical embodiment of MNU as a whole, as James chews up the scenery with his brash, loud personality, which is perfect for the violent nature of his character. The depiction of the aliens in this movie is quite different from what we're used to seeing. The decision to portray them as vulnerable creatures was refreshing, as most alien movies depict them as powerful beings. This idea allows us to be on board with the aliens from the get-go, making them the heroes of the story. Neil Blomkamp, in his directorial debut, does a phenomenal job here. I love the documentary feel that he captured, with a lot of handheld camera work being deployed, especially during the early scenes when MNU attempt to evict the aliens out of their homes. The visual palette is also a treat for the eyes. Now when it comes to the action, Blomkamp and his production team hold no punches for the audience. From the moment when Vickers and CJ attempt to retrieve the alien fluid from the MNU headquarters, the movie becomes an all-out action flick. The R rating, or 15 certificate as labelled over here in the UK, definitely pays off when it comes to showing how violent the alien technology is when Vickers and CJ use it against the MNU soldiers. The moment when Vickers enters the robotic suit was a fist-pumping moment for me in the movie, as you can't help but root for Vickers, CJ and his son to get back on board the alien mothership. The final action set piece is essentially a one-man army, and Vickers taking on all of the MNU soldiers. The score by composer Clinton Shorter is fantastic. It has all of the classic propulsive music that one would expect in a sci-fi movie. However, he also utilises vocals from various South African Kwaito artists, which is very much at home with the setting of the story. In short, District 9 is a sci-fi masterpiece. It incorporates real-world themes into the story in an organic way, contains great performances from Sholto Copley and David James, has terrific direction from Neil Blomkamp, with his documentary-style filmmaking and a visceral approach to the action, and has a top soundtrack from Clinton Shorter that combines classic Hollywood musical techniques with excellent South African vocals. So I'll now hand it over to you, as I want to find out your thoughts on District 9. Do you agree that's a sci-fi masterpiece, and if not, which other sci-fi movies do you prefer, as I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments section below. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.